Welcome, everyone, to a special series I'm thrilled to be hosting on LinkedIn called The Entrepreneur's Chair. Throughout this series, my goal is to provide you with authentic and intimate conversations with trailblazing leaders that are reshaping the Austin business scene. From startup founders to seasoned business moguls, we'll dig deep into the challenges, the triumphs, and the pivotal moments that have shaped their entrepreneurial journey. I am so thrilled to have with me today Maria Moffatt, a seasoned litigator with a wide-ranging legal background that spans construction law, employment litigation, insurance coverage, and beyond. With deep experience representing everyone from general contractors and landowners to employees and business leaders, Maria brings a powerful mix of technical knowledge and strategic legal insight to the table. She's appeared in both state and federal court, navigated high-stakes cases involving design defects, on-site injuries, wrongful termination and discrimination, and has advised on everything from bad faith insurance claims to wage disputes. Her ability to advocate fiercely while staying grounded in the human side of the law is what truly sets her apart. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's so good to be here. I'm honored. Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. You know, it's fascinating, your career. You have worked across so many different areas of the law. I mean, you're construction, commercial litigation, employment, and I even understand criminal cases.
I did. Yeah.
So what inspired you to take such a wide-ranging path, and what is that mix? How has that shaped how you actually show up and help your clients?
No, that's a great question. And I wish I had a really strategic, great answer for you, but it just happened. I think I try to very much look at things as opportunities when they present themselves. And if it's something that is a door that is opened, should I take that door and go through? And so a lot of times it's just life. You know, I made a change in some of my practice during the 2008, 2009 timeframe where, as you know, the economy was kind of touch and go. We all struggled. And of course, I started out going to law school thinking I wanted to do criminal.
Really?
But yes, very much so. And in law school, I was in a criminal clinic, so I got to represent people with supervision. And that is the side that I really wanted to do, was to help navigate people through what is probably the scariest part of their life in some instances. But when I got out, of course, I realized going into criminal, a lot of people start with the district attorney's office, and I had to pay my way through school, so I had a lot of student loans. And that's where I say sometimes life just happens.
Right.
So I got into commercial litigation and then just went from there. And through my career, it's just kind of changed into where those are the areas I found where I felt like I could contribute the most, and my insight and just ability to read people and help people navigate kind of difficult situations led me to really now mainly prioritizing my practice in construction and employment. So I'd like to say it was a grand plan, but a lot of it, I think a lot of attorneys or people in their careers that are in other industries, you start off one place and the path just takes you unexpectedly. And as long as you're open to that, I think that's how you find where you're supposed to be. And then you look back and go, I would never have thought this.
I find that true, even my career. I mean, I started out in IT, and then I did some sales, and I did this and that. And then once I became a CEO, I found that the experiences I had in each of those different domains made me so much of a better legal or a leader, because I saw things from different perspective. And so I think hearing you say that's all of those different perspectives, I'm sure, come to play. So thank you for sharing that.
No, of course. I agree.
So you are in an environment, you know, when you're working with people in construction disputes or a workforce claim, I'm assuming there's a lot of emotion that is attached to that, a lot of human stories. And I'm wondering, how do you balance being a strong advocate while dealing with all of those personal dynamics involved in the cases?
And that's another good question, and it's a balance. And to say I'm successful at it every day would not be true. I think, like all of us, right? You have your goals and what you aim to do, and you try to find that way, the best way you can. And some days you're more successful than others, but that's when you learn for the next day, because each day is a new chance to do that. I think the way I try to navigate it, and I think this is where my criminal background, because I did do criminal work in the middle of my career. I mainly work on the defense side of things, where I defend contractors, builders, employees, but I also did work on the other side in terms of in a lawsuit, plaintiff, people that are seeking something, whether it be money or an injunction or something like that. And so I did do a lot of criminal work again for about 5 years. And kind of brought back my love for criminal. But I find in criminal, because it is so personal to people, and a lot of times you could very well be going to jail. I mean, this is a little different than what I do now with civil, which is all money, but it brings out a lot of emotion, and you see the humanity of that person and of all of us. And a lot of times it's just mistakes people have made, and then they've gotten themselves into the legal system, and you have to help them navigate that. My first boss used to always tell me, you can't change what the client has already done. You have to take what they have done, right or wrong, and you have to navigate them through that. And hopefully along the way, you're educating them and navigating them into the next step. So in construction and employment, even though they're two different aspects, they go hand in hand a lot, because employment, obviously, I deal with a lot of people with employees and employers, but your employment is personal, because a lot of time it's what you do every day.
Right.
It's the people you see every day. Oftentimes you see them more than you see your family. And I think sometimes when things don't go well or changes are made, even if it doesn't go well and a company has to make a change, it's very personal to you. And we saw a lot of that, of course, during the 2008, 2009, 2010 timeframe.
Sure.
And in construction, you saw a lot of that, because, we pretty much, during that time, everything slowed down.
Right.
And then again, during COVID in 2020, 2021. And construction is a lot of how we build our communities. And so I think even though it's building a building, it's very still personal. So I try to remember back when I would help people, and I'd be sitting in a room in the criminal courthouse trying to help them navigate their choices, and think, this is still a person, and this is their home, or this is their office building. This is important to them. And so while in construction, I'm only dealing with money, no one's going to jail in my side of things, but you still have to look at the human side, I think, just in terms of they are still people.
Right.
And sometimes you're running a business, and you're just trying to run your business, right? You're just trying to do your product, whatever your love is, whether it's building swimming pools or whether it's actually building homes.
Right.
And unfortunately, the world we live in, there is so many other complicated things, and the law comes into that. So a lot of times we try to help our clients before they get into a lawsuit. Sometimes that's not always possible, but that helps them understand that, yes, you need to follow your passion in your business, but you have to do it too smartly. And a lot of that can keep you out of later costs, later legal battles, legal problems. And so you got to remember there's always a person behind what's coming to you. And I find really in the different areas of law that I've done, because I also did a lot of personal injury for a long time, and you still have to get to the source of why that person is either needing your advice, what they're trying to navigate, or what they're trying to not get out of, but kind of help with, because they've already gotten themselves into a lawsuit or a dispute, a payment dispute, anything like that.
It's funny because I hear you, you bring like a human element into something that could be just almost a transactional thing, right? And I can visualize from how you're characterizing your work, there's this huge difference between, I mean, I feel like you're kind of coming with that person and navigating, helping them to really get things resolved in the best way, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is, I think people a lot of times, something comes up and the first thing is, I'm going to sue that person. Right. I'm going to teach them a lesson. Right. And sometimes people don't understand how litigation works until they're knee deep in it.
Yes.
So I know from your discussion a minute ago, part of it is helping maybe even stopping, getting them to not get to that point. But also there's probably just some things that people don't understand about the legal process that if they understood might help. Would you mind sharing some of those things that you really would like them to know?
Oh, sure. Well, I'd have to say, I think, and our parents probably all told us this when we were young, try to prepare and plan now for what you do later. And of course, most of us are like, let's just get on with it. Let us just go. And I think and I'll use construction, for example. You have we represent architects, we represent engineers, we represent HVAC, mechanical contractors, plumbers, builders. This is what they do. They're very good with their hands. They're very good in labor. They're very good at putting things together and figuring things out. And especially like for an engineer, that's their passion and they want to figure those things out. But I think a lot of times what happens is then if something else, they don't think ahead that there's someone on the other side of what they're doing too. And a lot of times you have to prepare and really, I'd hate to say it, consult with an attorney when it comes to things in your business, because a lot of times it's things you don't even think of. That's where our advice comes into play in terms of providing expertise on what's out there in the industry. And I've been doing construction for over 20 years, and I just recently became board certified in construction law. And that means I have spent a lot of time learning that craft, like an engineer learns their craft, or like you in your craft. But I can come in and help you with your craft and say, look, these are things you need to consider. Maybe you need to have a right contract. Maybe you need to have a better payment arrangement. Maybe you need to have a better dispute resolution, rather than just saying, yeah, but no one's ever going to have a problem. Well, remember, there's a human being on the other side too, whether it be a homeowner, a business owner, a building owner. And so I would say a lot of times it's preparation in spending the time, and I hate to say it, the money, on some kind of legal counsel or at least advice to help you navigate your business. If for some reason you still get into, because a lot of times you can get into a lawsuit or a dispute with the best intentions. Right. Nobody did anything drastically wrong. It just happens. You have to then realize the process is slow. And sometimes it takes a while for the system to work through the problem. And I know that is especially hard for people because we're used to, especially now, you know what? I go through a drive-through, I get what I want. I call AT&T, they help me out right away.
That's right.
And unfortunately, the courthouse is not like that. But if you're patient and if you ask questions to your attorney or your counselor, they can help you navigate and understand why you're doing what you do. That doesn't make you feel any better and it doesn't make it move any quicker, but I think it helps take away that fear and that stress. That is what happens a lot of times when people get into, at least on my end, legal battles.
Yeah, it's interesting because it kind of the takeaways from hearing you a little bit of, yes, it costs money up front to consult.
Yes.
But the money you invest in that consult might identify some things that really keep you from running into trouble in the future.
Yes.
And, I also kind of hear, yeah, we can do the lawsuit, we can go through the whole process and you're totally qualified, right?
Right.
But then if you can settle and it makes sense, sometimes that's the best. So you're always there helping the person to understand, we could do this, but what about this and what the ramifications. So what a great balanced approach.
Yeah. Well, we try. And a lot of it is, like I said, some days are, you navigate it better than others. But I think expectations on both sides kind of helps my expectations as your attorney, but then also your expectations as a client, because it's like anything we do that's different. You want to understand what you're going through. But yes, I would say it is an investment in your business. It's kind of like when you go to school and you invest in yourself.
Right.
Same thing. And you may do this and never need me in 10 years. But there might be a reason you don't need me for 10 years.
Yep, you've given them
you did
good counsel at the beginning.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. Well, it's great. You've carved out a space for yourself. So typically, when you think construction, it's like a male-dominated world, right?
Sure.
But what experiences have been like in that space? And are there moments that stand out that you go, wow, that was really meaningful for me?
Yeah, great question again. You're really making me think on this one. I think it's the same thing that I approach everything. You have to navigate each day and approach each day your way. And so some industries are male dominated, some industries are female dominated. It does not disqualify that industry in a sense. It just happens to be the way it is. And a lot of times that is just by sheer us as a community, right? There are a lot of women now in construction, a lot of female engineers, a lot of people working on site, a lot of female project managers. But what I find too is that even though there's a lot of men in construction, they're just as capable and smart of working with their female counterparts as anyone else. I think the most impactful is when, I've had clients that I go on site and they're used to running a construction site. They're used to running a project, telling people this is how it is. I need it done now. I need it done now. I need you to move here. And when they end up, for example, I'll use, if they end up in a construction defect lawsuit, sometimes years later on a project, well, they're trying to still project manage that lawsuit. And I think when they start to understand, especially my knowledge and my ability to show them, look, these are the steps we have to go through. I don't think it matters whether it's male or female, but I've had a lot of people that are men and women that are project managers, and they're used to being able to say, no, I want that contractor to just go. So they want to come into a lawsuit and say, no, you just tell them that's how it is. Well, it doesn't work like that. We have to work through that. We'll get to that goal,
right?
But it's going to take several steps. And I think once they start to see that, it takes all that emotion away and that loss, and they're like, okay, we can do this.
I love that. I mean, it is. People are wired a certain way. They're used to, a certain approach.
Of
and
course.
then with your background, your human approach to working with clients, you're able to kind of settle them down, and we're experts in a lot of things, but we're not the experts in everything. And then get them calm enough to start, actually listening a little bit. So I love that description. That means a lot. And bringing the humanity to that, because everybody needs the support, and
of course
there's a lot of redemption that happens in life. So
there is, and sometimes it's called information.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and I'm not going to say my clients always like what I tell them, but at the same time, you have to know where you are, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you navigate your choices. We always wish there was a third option, a third door that gets us out of what we're in. But a lot of times going through that and making decisions and realizing that you're going to have consequences to those decisions, even if you have to pay a lot of money, or back when I did criminal, if you were going to have to go to jail for 30 days, that is how you take that into your arsenal, though, as a person.
Right.
And then it's like, all right, so for the next construction project, this is how I make my business better. Yeah. This is how I try to avoid that. To the extent you can.
Yeah.
But it's like any of us that go to someone who is a specialist in their area. So I do think that's important.
Thank you for sharing that.
It's hard when you're looking at something and you're like, I don't want to deal with this, and this wasn't my fault, and I don't believe the other side.
Right.
And that may be true, and that's why I always tell people, in the end, the right resolution usually comes out. I know sometimes in the news and in the media, that's not what we hear in the legal system, and it is very slow, but I believe for the most part it works. Yeah. It finds its way to the right resolution doesn't always mean you like that resolution,
Right.
but it finds what it needs to. And I always tell clients, look, if the other side is not injured, is not damaged, if the story is not the same that they're telling you, that will eventually come out.
Yeah.
And we will get there.
A great approach.
Yeah.
So I know in your profession, you're entrepreneurial. I mean, you're in charge for the Austin region, right, for your firm. And
Yes.
so I always think about I ask two questions always at the end of a conversation. So what is it that you see that authentically makes for a successful entrepreneur?
That's a great question, because a lot of times I don't consider myself an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah, you
but
are.
Right? But the definition of entrepreneur is pretty broad, and
Right.
and I think it has to be something that's different. I would say, because my career was mainly in Dallas. That's where I practiced for
Sure.
20 years, and then came down here to the Gerstle-Snelson office to run the Austin office in kind of the South Texas area. I think it has to be not only open-mindedness, but it also has to be determination. You have to decide that you're going to get back up and dust yourself off, and you're going to try it again.
There's a lot of that in the
I hate
entrepreneurial
to be
world.
so simple,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
I know. And then the last one is, how do you actually define success as an entrepreneur?
Another great question, and I think it has to be your individual success. You have to decide whether it's personal or whether it's business, and you have to realize you have to have your immediate success, but then your long-term success, and always be open again that long-term success may look different than you thought it was going to. But do you feel like you started your day and you accomplished something and got a step closer to what you're trying to get to, whatever that may be? I think that would be success. I don't think you can put a marker on yourself. I think you need to have your short-term, what you consider a short-term goal, and a long-term goal. But remember that long-term goal might look different.
The road does
Wind
around.
change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think so. You can't measure success by other people.
Yeah.
It has to be your success, and whether that be personal inside or whether it be success for your business or your job if you don't own a business.
Maria,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh,
I've
thank you,
enjoyed our
Elizabeth.
conversation.
I know. It's always so easy to talk to you.
Well, and thank you for what you do for your clients and
Yes.
the community. It's just really wonderful to hear. I just know you bring a lot of heart to what you do, which legal doesn't always feel like it should have heart, but I know you approach it that way. So thank you for caring for your clients so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving me a chance to talk to you today.
Thank you.